My brother called me a loser at my son's graduation. Then the CEO stood up and saluted me. I still remember the sting of his words as he smirked at me from across the auditorium. Little did he know I was the one who saved his company from bankruptcy. When the CEO recognized me in front of everyone, my brother's face turned white as a sheet. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I stood in the crowded high school gymnasium, clutching the program booklet so tightly my knuckles had turned white. The gentle hum of excited conversation filled the air as parents, siblings, and friends gathered to celebrate the graduating class of Lincoln High. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, and the stage was decorated with the school's blue and gold colors. A large sign reading, "Congratulations Class of 2025, dominated the backdrop. My heart swelled with pride as I scanned the rows of students in their blue caps and gowns. Among them sat my son Jason, his tassel swinging slightly as he turned to chat with his friends. This moment represented years of sacrifice, late nights helping with homework, and countless hours of encouragement. As a single mother who had raised him alone since he was 5, this day meant everything to me. I had arrived early to secure a good seat, close enough to capture the perfect photo when Jason walked across the stage. The folding chair was uncomfortable, but nothing could dampen my spirits today. I wore my best dress, a navy blue number I'd splurged on specifically for this occasion, and had even treated myself to a professional hairstyling appointment that morning. Then I spotted him, my brother David, sauntering down the aisle with his designer suit and that perpetual look of superiority. My stomach tightened. I hadn't expected him to come. We hadn't spoken in months, not since our last disastrous family dinner, where he'd belittled my career choices yet again. "Sarah," he nodded curtly as he approached. "Surprised to see you manage to make it on time for once." The subtle dig made my jaw clench, but I forced a smile. "Hello, David. I didn't know you were coming." I shifted slightly, making room as he took the seat beside me that I'd been saving for my best friend Mia. "Of course I'd come," he scoffed. "Someone from the family needs to represent success for Jason. Show him what's possible beyond." He gestured vaguely at me. "This." I felt the familiar sting of his judgment, but reminded myself this day wasn't about him or me. It was about Jason. I wouldn't let David ruin it. "That seat is actually saved for." "For who? That artist friend of yours?" David snorted, settling in more comfortably. "I think Jason would prefer having his successful uncle in the front row. After all, connections matter in the real world." The irony of his statement wasn't lost on me. David, the self-proclaimed business genius, had no idea how many connections I actually had in the real world. As a senior software engineer at Meridian Technologies, one of the most innovative tech companies in the country, I had built a reputation for solving problems others couldn't crack. But I never flaunted my success the way David did with his mid-level management position at Gardner Financial. My phone vibrated with a text from Mia. "Stuck in traffic. Save me a seat." Too late for that now. The principal walked onto the stage, tapping the microphone to signal the start of the ceremony. I leaned forward, eager to forget about David and focus on what mattered. But my brother wasn't finished. "So, how's the coding going?" he whispered, his voice dripping with condescension. "Still hiding behind a computer screen all day? You know, there's a world outside your apartment, Sarah." I bit my tongue. "I'm very happy with my career, David." He chuckled. "Right. Happy spending your days alone typing gibberish that nobody appreciates. At least I work with people. Make real connections. That's what gets you ahead in life." The principal's voice boomed through the speakers, welcoming everyone to the graduation ceremony. I tried to focus on her words, but David continued his whispered commentary. "Jason could have had such a different life if you'd just accepted Dad's offer to work at the family business. Stability, connections, a normal upbringing instead of being raised by a workaholic who could barely make ends meet." My hands trembled slightly. David had no idea that I'd rejected our father's offer because the family business was drowning in debt when Dad died. I'd been the one to quietly pay off those debts, allowing David to take over a clean slate while I built my own path. He never knew that barely making ends meet was the result of my financial sacrifices for both my son and the family David thought he had saved. The first row of graduates stood and made their way toward the stage. I spotted Jason, fifth in line, standing tall and proud. I fumbled for my phone to take a picture. "He looks just like his father," David murmured. Too bad Michael wasn't man enough to stick around. But what could he expect, marrying someone who… "Enough," I hissed, finally losing patience. "This is Jason's day. Please, just let me enjoy it." David raised his eyebrows, that familiar smug smile playing on his lips. "Just making conversation, sis. No need to get emotional." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The graduates continued across the stage one by one, each name announced, each family cheering. When Jason's name was called, I rose to my feet, clapping and cheering loudly. "That's my boy!" I couldn't help but shout, my heart bursting with pride as he accepted his diploma, pausing to wave in my direction. David remained seated, offering only polite applause. When I sat back down, wiping a tear from my eye, he leaned over. "You always were embarrassingly emotional. No wonder Jason seems so unsure of himself." I whipped my head toward him. "What are you talking about? Jason is confident and kind and…" "Oh, please," David scoffed. "The boy has potential, but he clearly lacks direction. You should have sent him to Preston Academy like I suggested." "Public school," he shook his head disapprovingly. "What a waste of his potential." What David didn't know was that Jason had received a full scholarship to Preston, but chose Lincoln High to stay with his friends and the robotics team he loved. It had been his decision and I'd supported it, something David could never understand about my parenting philosophy. As the last graduate received their diploma, the principal returned to the podium to introduce the keynote speaker. "We are honored today to welcome a very special guest," she announced. "The founder and CEO of Meridian Technologies, Mr. Alexander Chen." I straightened in my seat, surprised. I knew Alex would be attending. He'd mentioned it in our last meeting, but I had no idea he would be speaking. As the head of my department, we worked closely together, but I'd never mentioned our connection to anyone at Jason's school. A tall, distinguished Asian man in his 50s approached the podium. With his silver-streaked hair and calm demeanor, Alex commanded attention without demanding it, a quality I'd always admired about him. "Thank you for that kind introduction," he began. "Graduates, parents, faculty, it's an honor to share this momentous day with you." David leaned toward me again. "That's Alexander Chen," he whispered, as if I wouldn't recognize my own boss. "His company is revolutionizing the industry. I've been trying to get a meeting with him for months." I nodded, hiding a smile. If only he knew. Alex spoke eloquently about the future awaiting the graduates, the importance of perseverance, and finding purpose beyond success. Then he paused, his eyes scanning the audience. "Before I conclude, I'd like to share a personal story that embodies the values I hope you'll carry forward." He cleared his throat. 6 months ago, Meridian Technologies faced a critical crisis. A security breach threatened not only our company but the privacy of millions of users worldwide. While everyone panicked, one person stayed calm, worked 3 days straight without sleep, and single-handedly created the solution that saved not only our company but potentially the entire industry. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, realizing where this was going. "That person," Alex continued, "exemplifies what I mean when I talk about purpose beyond success. She never sought recognition. She simply saw a problem and fixed it because it was the right thing to do." David was now sitting forward, clearly interested in this corporate drama. I shrank a little in my seat. "I'm telling you this story because that remarkable person is here today." Alex's eyes found mine in the crowd. "Sarah Mitchell, would you please stand?" A murmur rippled through the audience. David turned to me, his expression morphing from confusion to disbelief. I remained frozen, mortified by the unexpected attention. "Come on, Sarah," Alex encouraged. "These graduates should see what real excellence looks like." Slowly, I rose to my feet, my face burning with embarrassment. The audience, unsure at first, began to applaud. From the graduate section, I could see Jason standing, clapping wildly, his face beaming with pride. "This woman," Alex continued, is not only one of the most brilliant minds in our industry but also, as I've just learned today, the mother of one of your graduates. Sarah Mitchell single-handedly averted what analysts later called the potential digital pandemic of 2024. And she did it while raising an exceptional young man on her own. The applause grew louder. I could feel David stiffening beside me. So graduates, when you leave here today, remember Sarah's example. True success isn't about titles or recognition. It's about making a difference when it matters most. Alex then did something completely unexpected. He raised his hand in a formal salute. To Sarah Mitchell and all the unsung heroes who make our world better, we salute you. The entire auditorium erupted in applause. Even the teachers and staff were standing now. And there was Jason, practically jumping up and down with excitement. I finally allowed myself to sit, overwhelmed by the moment. And that's when David leaned over, his face a complex mixture of shock and embarrassment. You work for Meridian Technologies? With Alexander Chen? His voice was barely audible over the continued applause. I nodded, unable to formulate words. Why didn't you ever say anything? He demanded. Before I could answer, Alex was concluding his speech, and the principal was returning to announce the official conferring of degrees. The moment had passed, but the damage to David's perception of me was irreversibly done. As the ceremony concluded and the graduates threw their caps into the air, I lost sight of David in the rush of excited families flooding the floor. I pushed through the crowd, searching for Jason. When I finally found him, he wrapped me in a bear hug that lifted me off my feet. Mom, why didn't you tell me you were such a big deal? He laughed, setting me down. Mr. Chen literally saluted you. I brushed a strand of hair from his face. Because it's not important, honey. What's important is that you did it. You graduated, I'm so proud of you. Sarah. Alex Chen appeared beside us, extending his hand. Forgive me if I embarrassed you. When I saw your name on the program as a parent, I couldn't resist the opportunity to give you the recognition you've always avoided. I shook his hand, still slightly overwhelmed. It's fine, Alex. Thank you for your kind words. This is my son, Jason. The robotics team captain, Alex nodded, shaking Jason's hand firmly. Your mother mentioned your engineering prowess. We should talk about our internship program before you head to college. Jason's eyes widened. Seriously? That would be amazing. She never mentioned you were her boss, came David's voice from behind us. He had finally navigated through the crowd, his expression guarded but curious. And you are? Alex asked politely. David Mitchell, Sarah's brother. He extended his hand eagerly. Ah, yes, Alex shook it briefly. Sarah mentioned you run your family's financial firm. Gardner Financial, correct? David puffed up slightly. Yes, that's right. We've been trying to arrange a meeting with your CFO for some time. Have you? Alex raised an eyebrow. Well, we should certainly discuss that, but first, we're celebrating Sarah and Jason's achievement today. He turned back to me. The executive team is having dinner at La Maison tonight. You and Jason should join us. Oh, I couldn't, I began. I insist, Alex said firmly. 7 o'clock, and we'll discuss that internship. He nodded to Jason before turning to leave, pausing only briefly to add, Mr. Mitchell, good to meet you. Perhaps Sarah can introduce us properly sometime. As Alex walked away, David turned to me, his expression a mixture of confusion and something I'd never seen directed at me before. Respect. Sarah, what exactly do you do at Meridian? I smiled, taking Jason's arm. I solve problems, David. That's what I've always done. But you never said. You never asked, I replied simply. Now, if you'll excuse us, Jason and I have a celebration lunch planned, years in the making. Right, honey? Jason grinned, still buzzing from both his graduation and the internship prospect. Right, Mom. Uncle David, are you coming? David glanced between us, clearly recalibrating everything he thought he knew about his sister. I have a meeting. But we should catch up soon, Sarah. There's clearly a lot I don't know about you. Clearly, I agreed, allowing myself a small moment of satisfaction. I'll have my assistant call your assistant. As David walked away, looking somewhat dazed, Jason bumped my shoulder playfully. Since when do you have an assistant? I laughed. Since never. But he doesn't need to know that. We made our way through the crowd toward the exit, my arm linked with my son's, my heart lighter than it had been in years. For once, I had allowed myself to be seen, not as the struggling single mom, not as David's underachieving sister, but as who I truly was, a woman of value, of contribution, of purpose. As we stepped into the bright summer sunshine, my phone buzzed. A message from Mia. What just happened? I arrived just in time to see you get a standing ovation. Drinks later. You're telling me everything. I smiled, slipping the phone back into my purse. There would be time for explanations later. For now, this moment belonged to Jason and me. A validation not just of his achievement, but of our journey together. Mom? Jason said as we reached the car. What Uncle David said before, about you being a loser. I heard him when I was lining up. My heart sank. Oh, honey, don't worry about that. Your uncle and I have a complicated relationship. Jason shook his head, his expression serious beyond his years. He was wrong. You're the opposite of a loser. You're my hero. Always have been, even before today. And just like that, any lingering sting from David's words vanished completely. I hugged my son again, this brilliant young man who saw me clearly when others hadn't bothered to look. Thank you, sweetheart, I whispered. That means more than any standing ovation ever could. The graduation ceremony faded into the background as Jason and I made our way to Morelli's, our favorite Italian restaurant. It was our tradition. Important milestones were always celebrated with their tiramisu, the best in the city. As we settled into our usual corner booth, the weight of the day's events finally hit me. I still can't believe Mr. Chen did that, Jason said, shaking his head in amazement as he unfolded his napkin. The look on everyone's faces when he saluted you, I laughed, still feeling the lingering embarrassment mixed with an unexpected sense of pride. Trust me, no one was more surprised than I was. And Uncle David? Jason's eyes sparkled with mischief. I've never seen him speechless before. It was like watching a computer crash and reboot. Be nice, I admonished, though I couldn't help but smile at the accuracy of his description. The waiter arrived to take our order. The usual spaghetti carbonara for Jason and margarita pizza for me. As he walked away, Jason leaned forward. Mom, why didn't you ever tell Uncle David what you really do? All these years he's been treating you like you were. I don't know, struggling or something. I sighed, tracing the rim of my water glass. It's complicated, sweetie. After your grandfather died, there was a lot of family dynamics at play. You mean how Grandpa left the company to Uncle David, even though you were the one with the business degree? I looked up, surprised. How did you know about that? Jason shrugged. Grandma told me last Christmas. She said Grandpa always regretted it, but thought a son should run the family business, or something outdated like that. I nodded slowly. My mother had never told me this. Your grandfather was from a different generation. He couldn't imagine a woman, especially a single mother, running a financial firm. And honestly, I didn't want it by then. I'd already started at Horizon, and I loved the work I was doing. But you let Uncle David think you were barely making it, Jason pressed. All those comments about our apartment being small, about my public school, you never corrected him. Our food arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. When the waiter left, I twirled pasta around my fork, considering my answer. There's something liberating about being underestimated, I finally said. When people don't expect much from you, you're free to move through the world on your own terms. I didn't need David's approval or understanding. I had you, my work, our life together. That was enough. Jason considered this as he took a bite of his carbonara. I get that. But still, seeing his face today when he realized who you really are, that must have felt pretty awesome. I smiled, remembering David's expression of shock. I won't lie, it was satisfying. But what meant more was seeing you up on that stage. That's the real victory, Jason. Everything I've done has been for you. Jason reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I know, Mom. And I'm going to make you proud at MIT. You already make me proud every day, I assured him. The scholarship is just confirmation of what I've always known. You're exceptional. After lunch, we stopped for ice cream and walked through Jefferson Park, reminiscing about the playground where I'd pushed him on the swings as a toddler. It was perfect until my phone rang. The screen displayed, David Mitchell. I hesitated, then answered. Hello, David. Sarah. His voice sounded strained. We need to talk. Can you meet me at the office? I checked my watch. It was only 3:30, hours before the dinner with Alex and the executive team. I suppose I could stop by. Is everything okay? There was a pause. Just come to the office, please. The please caught me off guard. David rarely asked for anything he usually demanded. All right. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I hung up and turned to Jason. That was your uncle. He wants to meet at his office. Jason's eyes narrowed. Why? So he can pretend today never happened? I don't know. But he said please, which is practically a first. I smiled at my son. Will you be okay on your own for a couple hours? I still need to get ready for that dinner with Mr. Chen later. Mom, I'm 18, Jason reminded me. I think I can handle being home alone. Besides, Trevor invited me to his graduation party. I was going to ask if I could go. Of course you can. It's your day. You should celebrate with your friends. I hugged him quickly. I'll drop you at home on my way to see David. 30 minutes later, I found myself standing in front of Gardner Financial, the modest 6-story building that housed the company my father had built from nothing. I hadn't been inside in years, not since the reading of my father's will. The receptionist's eyes widened slightly when I gave my name. Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell is expecting you. Please, go right up to the top floor. The elevator ride gave me time to collect my thoughts. Why had David sounded so urgent? Was this about Alex Chen? Or was it something else entirely? The doors opened directly into a plush waiting area. The decor was exactly what I'd expect from David. Traditional, masculine, designed to impress clients with its solidity rather than its innovation. Sarah. David emerged from the corner office, his tie loosened, and his earlier confidence noticeably diminished. Thank you for coming. Please come in. I followed him into the office that had once been our father's. David had changed very little. The same heavy mahogany desk, the same leather chairs, even the same landscape paintings on the walls. The only addition was a large family photo on the credenza behind the desk. David, his wife Karen, and their 2 children, Emma and Tyler. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Water? David offered, uncharacteristically solicitous. I'm fine. What's this about, David? He sank into his chair, running a hand through his hair. It's about Gardner Financial. We're in trouble, Sarah. Serious trouble. I sat down across from him. What kind of trouble? Financial trouble. He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the desk. We're 3 months away from bankruptcy. I stared at him, processing his words. That's not possible. The quarterly reports were manipulated, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Not by me, he added quickly, seeing my expression. By Marcus Wells, our CFO. He's been cooking the books for over a year. I only discovered it last week when the audit team raised red flags. I opened the folder and scanned the contents. Financial statements, audit reports, projections. The picture they painted was grim. Gardner Financial wasn't just struggling, it was in free fall. Where's Marcus now? Gone. Disappeared the day after I confronted him. Took his family and emptied their bank accounts. David's voice was hollow. The board doesn't know yet, neither does anyone else. I've been trying to figure out how to fix this before it becomes public. I closed the folder and looked at my brother, really looked at him. For the first time, I could see past the arrogance to the fear beneath. David wasn't just worried about the company, he was terrified. "Why are you telling me this? What do you expect me to do?" He met my gaze directly. "I need your help, Sarah. Today at the graduation, I realized I've completely misjudged you. The way Chen talked about you. You're obviously far more capable than I ever gave you credit for." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So now that you know I'm successful, you think I can magically fix the mess you're in?" "That's not fair," he protested. "I didn't create this problem. Marcus did." "But you were so busy playing the role of the big-shot businessman that you never noticed your CFO was defrauding the company," I pointed out. "Dad always said the most important skill in business is knowing who to trust." David flinched as if I'd slapped him. "You're right. I failed." "Is that what you want to hear?" "I failed the company, I failed our employees, and I failed Dad's legacy." His voice cracked slightly. "But this isn't just about me, Sarah. We have 78 employees who depend on Gardner Financial for their livelihoods. People who worked with Dad for decades. Are you willing to let them all lose their jobs because you resent me?" The emotional manipulation was classic David, but he wasn't entirely wrong. Those employees didn't deserve to suffer because of Marcus's fraud or David's negligence. I sighed. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Hope flickered in his eyes. "You have connections. That Chen guy obviously thinks the world of you. Gardner Financial needs a capital infusion and new clients. If Horizon Technologies would consider us for their portfolio management..." "Stop," I held up a hand. "I'm not using my relationship with Alex to bail you out." "Then what? You'll just let Dad's company die?" I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Send me all the financial records. The real ones, not the doctored versions. Give me access to everything. I'll review it tonight and let you know what I think can be done." David rose to his feet. "You'll help?" "I didn't say that. I said I'll review the situation and tell you if I think anything can be done. No promises." Relief washed over his face. "Thank you, Sarah. I know we've had our differences, but..." "This isn't about our differences, David. It's about those 78 people and Dad's legacy." I moved toward the door. "Email me everything within the hour." "And David? If I find out you're holding anything back, I'm walking away immediately." He nodded earnestly. "Everything. You'll have it all." As I rode the elevator down, my mind was already sorting through possibilities. Gardner Financial's problems weren't just about money. They were systemic. The company had failed to evolve with the changing financial landscape. Even without Marcus's fraud, they would have eventually faced extinction. My phone buzzed with a text from Jason. "How's it going with Uncle Clueless?" I smiled despite the weight on my shoulders. "Complicated. Tell you later. Have fun at Trevor's." By the time I arrived home, David had already sent a secure link to the company's financial records. I had just under 2 hours before I needed to leave for dinner with Alex and the Horizon team. I kicked off my heels, changed into comfortable clothes, and settled at my desk with a cup of strong coffee. What I found as I dug into the numbers was worse than David had indicated. Marcus hadn't just manipulated the books, he'd systematically siphoned funds from client accounts, covering his tracks by shifting money between accounts like a complex shell game. The company wasn't 3 months from bankruptcy, it was weeks away from complete collapse. Worse, when the fraud was discovered, the reputational damage would be catastrophic. Gardner Financial would never recover, regardless of any capital infusion. I was still processing this when it was time to prepare for dinner. As I showered and changed into the black cocktail dress I reserved for company events, my mind continued working on the problem. By the time I slid into my car to drive to La Maison, I had the outline of a plan, not to save Gardner Financial, but to save the employees and clients who would be devastated by its failure. La Maison was the most exclusive restaurant in the city, housed in a converted mansion with private dining rooms and a wine cellar that drew connoisseurs from across the country. As I handed my keys to the valet, I took a deep breath, forcing myself to compartmentalize. Tonight wasn't about David or Gardner Financial. It was about celebrating with my colleagues and supporting Jason's internship opportunity. "Sarah!" Alex greeted me warmly as I entered the private room where the Horizon team had gathered. The woman of the hour, twice in one day. I smiled, accepting the glass of champagne a waiter offered. Once was more than enough, Alex. You really didn't need to put me on the spot like that at the graduation. Nonsense. You've been hiding your light under a bushel for too long. He guided me toward a group of executives. Where's that impressive son of yours? Celebrating with friends. 18-year-olds in fancy restaurants don't always mix well. Alex laughed. Fair point. But I was serious about that internship. Our engineering department would be lucky to have him for the summer. He'd love that. Though he'll be leaving for MIT in August. Perfect timing then. June and July with us before he heads off to Cambridge. Alex's expression turned more serious. Speaking of Cambridge, there's someone I'd like you to meet. The reason for our dinner tonight, actually. He led me to a distinguished-looking man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. Sarah, this is Dr. Richard Harmon, founder of Quantum Shield. Richard, this is Sarah Mitchell, the genius I was telling you about. I shook Dr. Harmon's hand, immediately recognizing the name. Quantum Shield was a cybersecurity startup that had developed revolutionary encryption technology. Rumors had been circulating for months that Horizon was considering acquiring them. The famous Sarah Mitchell, Dr. Harmon smiled. Alex has been singing your praises. He tells me you're the one who stopped the breach last year. I was just doing my job, I demurred. No false modesty, Alex interjected. Sarah, Richard and I have been discussing a potential merger between Quantum Shield and Horizon. If it goes through, we'll need someone to lead the integration of our security systems. I can think of no one better qualified than you. I blinked, surprised. That's a significant responsibility. It comes with a promotion, Alex continued. Senior Vice President of Cybersecurity Integration, reporting directly to me. My mind raced. This was an incredible opportunity. Exactly the kind of challenge I'd been hoping for. But the timing couldn't have been worse, with the Gardner financial crisis looming. I'm honored, Alex, truly. But I'd need to. Think about it? Of course. Take the weekend. But Richard's only in town until Monday, so we'd need your decision by then. The conversation shifted to the technical aspects of Quantum Shield's encryption protocols, a topic that would normally have fascinated me. But in the back of my mind, David's problems continued to simmer. As dinner progressed, I found myself seated beside Horizon's Chief Financial Officer, Eleanor Kim. Eleanor had been with the company since its founding, and was known for her sharp analytical mind and no-nonsense approach. Quite a day for you, she commented as we were served our main course. First a standing ovation at your son's graduation, now this promotion offer. You must be thrilled. I smiled. It's been unexpected, to say the least. Eleanor studied me over her wine glass. Yet you seem preoccupied. Anything I can help with? Something about her direct gaze made me consider confiding in her. Not everything, but perhaps enough to get some perspective. Hypothetically, I began carefully, if you discovered a financial firm was on the verge of collapse due to fraud by a key executive, but the current leadership wanted to try to save it, what would you advise? Eleanor's eyebrows rose slightly. Hypothetically, I'd say it depends on the extent of the fraud and whether the current leadership was complicit. They weren't complicit, just negligent. She nodded thoughtfully. Then transparency is essential. Disclose everything to the authorities, work with them to pursue the fraudster, and protect the clients and employees as much as possible. Trying to cover it up, even temporarily, only makes things worse in the long run. Even if disclosure means the company won't survive? Some companies shouldn't survive, Eleanor said bluntly. If the fraud is extensive enough to collapse the firm, then the foundations were rotten. Better to salvage what can be saved than to prop up a failing structure. She tilted her head. This isn't about your brother's firm, is it? Gardner Financial? I nearly choked on my wine. How did you? I make it my business to know about local financial institutions, she said smoothly. And I saw him at the graduation today. The family resemblance is striking. I set down my glass carefully. Yes, it's Gardner Financial, though I'd appreciate your discretion on this matter. Of course. She hesitated, then added, If you're looking for a solution, Horizon has an acquisition division. We're always interested in expanding our wealth management services. If the client base is solid, we might consider absorbing the firm, under new management naturally. The seed of an idea that had been forming in my mind suddenly crystallized. Eleanor, would you be willing to have a more detailed conversation about this tomorrow? Unofficially, of course. She smiled. My Saturday morning yoga class ends at 10. Brunch at Westfield's at 10:30? I'll be there. As the dinner wound down, Alex pulled me aside once more. You'll think about the position? I will, I promised. It's an incredible opportunity, Alex. Thank you for considering me. Don't thank me, you've earned it. He squeezed my shoulder. And Sarah? Whatever's bothering you, and don't deny something, is, remember, you're not alone. The Horizon family looks after its own. His words stayed with me during the drive home. The Horizon family looks after its own. That was the fundamental difference between my world and David's. At Horizon, success was measured not just by profits but by how we supported each other, how we solved problems together. When I arrived home, the house was still empty. A text from Jason informed me he was staying over at Trevor's. I kicked off my heels and sank onto the sofa, my mind still churning with the day's events. My phone rang. David again. Have you looked at the records? He asked without preamble. Yes. It's worse than you said, David. Much worse. He exhaled shakily. I know. Can you help? Not in the way you're hoping, I said honestly. Gardner Financial can't be saved in its current form. The fraud is too extensive. Then what? We just give up? Let Dad's legacy die? Number we transform it. I outlined the plan that had been forming in my mind since my conversation with Eleanor. Horizon might be interested in acquiring Gardner Financial's client portfolio and retaining some of the staff. It wouldn't be a bailout. It would be a controlled transition that protects the clients and as many employees as possible. An acquisition? David's voice hardened. You want me to sell Dad's company? I want you to save what can be saved, I corrected him. The company as it exists is already dead, David. Marcus saw to that. This is about minimizing the damage. There was a long silence. Then, and what happens to me in this scenario? The question I'd been expecting. That depends on how you handle this. If you cooperate fully with authorities, disclose everything voluntarily, and help with the transition, there's a chance you could avoid criminal charges for negligence. You won't retain leadership, but you might be able to preserve something of your reputation. And if I don't agree to this plan, then I can't help you, and you'll likely face the full consequences when this all comes to light, which it will, with or without your cooperation. Another long silence. I need to think about this. Don't think too long. I'm meeting with Horizon's CFO tomorrow morning to discuss possibilities. This opportunity won't wait, David. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my living room, emotionally exhausted, yet strangely at peace. For years, I had lived in the shadow of my family's expectations and disappointments. Today, I had finally stepped into the light, not just at the graduation ceremony, but in taking control of a situation that David, for all his posturing, couldn't handle. My phone buzzed with a text from Jason. Had the best day ever. First graduation, then finding out my mom is secretly a superhero. Now Trevor's dad is letting us use his boat tomorrow. Love you, Mom. You're amazing. I smiled, tears pricking at my eyes. In the end, that was all that mattered. Not David's approval, not the promotion, not even saving Gardner Financial. My son was proud of me. He was happy. And for tonight, that was enough. The morning light streamed through the windows of Westfield's, the upscale brunch spot where Eleanor had suggested we meet. I arrived early, selecting a quiet corner table that offered privacy while still allowing me to watch the entrance. My mind had been racing all night, developing and refining the outline of a plan that could potentially save the employees of Gardner Financial while preventing a devastating blow to the clients who trusted the firm with their investments. I ordered a black coffee, needing the caffeine after a restless night. The waitress had just delivered it when Eleanor walked in, dressed in yoga pants and a fitted jacket, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She spotted me immediately and made her way across the restaurant. "Good morning," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I hope you don't mind the casual attire. Saturday is my one day to dress down." "Not at all," I assured her. "Thanks for meeting me on such short notice." Eleanor signaled to the waitress for coffee, then turned her full attention to me. "So, Gardner Financial, tell me everything." For the next 30 minutes, I laid out the situation in detail. Marcus's fraud, the extent of the financial damage, the timeline we were facing, and my concerns for the employees and clients. Eleanor listened intently, occasionally asking sharp questions that cut straight to the heart of the matter. When I finished, she sat back, fingers tapping thoughtfully against her coffee cup. "You're right about one thing. The firm can't be saved in its current form. The fraud is too extensive, and the regulatory repercussions would be insurmountable." "That's what I thought," I nodded. "But there's still value there. The client relationships, some of the advisors, the established reputation before all this." "Potentially," Eleanor agreed. "Though the reputation will take a significant hit once this becomes public, regardless of how it's handled." She studied me closely. "What's your stake in this, Sarah? Why do you care if your brother's firm fails?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't care about the firm," I admitted after a moment. "But there are 78 employees whose livelihoods are at stake. People who worked with my father for years. They don't deserve to lose everything because of Marcus's crimes and David's negligence." Eleanor's expression softened slightly. "Admirable, but business decisions rarely have room for sentiment." "It's not just sentiment," I countered. "It's strategic. Gardner Financial has a solid client base, mostly mid-tier wealth management clients who've been with the firm for generations. That's a demographic Horizon has been trying to penetrate for years." A slight smile played at Eleanor's lips. "You've done your homework." "I've been paying more attention to my brother's business than he realized," I said dryly. The waitress returned to take our food orders. A veggie omelet for Eleanor, avocado toast for me. When she left, Eleanor leaned forward, her voice lowered. "All right, let's say I'm interested. What exactly are you proposing?" I outlined my concept. Horizon would acquire Gardner Financial's client portfolio and select staff. The acquisition would be positioned as a strategic merger, emphasizing continuity of service for clients, while bringing them the added security of Horizon's resources and technology. "And your brother?" Eleanor asked, arching an eyebrow. "Where does he fit in this scenario?" "He doesn't," I said firmly. "David would need to step down completely. He could retain a title for appearance's sake during the transition, but no actual authority." "He'll fight that." "Initially, yes. But when the alternative is potential criminal charges for failing to prevent the fraud, I think he'll come around." Eleanor nodded slowly. "You understand, we'd need to conduct our own forensic audit before proceeding with anything like this." "Of course. And everything would need to be disclosed to the appropriate regulatory bodies. Transparency is essential." "Agreed." She pulled out her phone and checked her calendar. "I can have our acquisition team review this Monday morning. If they're interested, we could potentially move quickly, but only if your brother cooperates fully. I'll make sure he understands what's at stake," I promised. Eleanor put her phone away and fixed me with a penetrating gaze. "One more thing, Sarah. Alex's offer of the SVP position. How does that factor into this?" I blinked, caught off guard by the question. "It doesn't. The two situations are completely separate." "Are they?" She smiled knowingly. "You're in an interesting position. On one hand, a career-defining promotion. On the other, saving your family's legacy. Or at least parts of it. Most people would see a potential conflict of interest." "There's no conflict," I insisted. "Whether I take the SVP position or not has no bearing on whether Horizon should acquire Gardner Financial. That decision should be based solely on business merits." Eleanor's smile widened. "And that, Sarah Mitchell, is exactly why you deserve that promotion. Your integrity is as impressive as your technical skills." She raised her coffee cup in a small toast. I'll support the acquisition exploration, assuming the numbers check out. And I'll tell Alex he'd be a fool to let you go. Relief washed over me. Thank you, Eleanor. Don't thank me yet. The hard part is still ahead, convincing your brother to accept reality. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from David. We need to talk. Come to the house. 1 p.m. I showed Eleanor the message. Looks like that conversation is happening sooner rather than later. Good luck, she said, her expression sympathetic. Family business is always the most complicated kind. After brunch, I drove home to change before meeting David. Jason had texted that he was spending the day on Trevor's family boat and would be home for dinner. The house felt unusually quiet as I moved through it, changing from my brunch attire into jeans and a casual blouse. As I was getting ready to leave, my phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? Is this Sarah Mitchell? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Yes, this is Sarah. This is Andrea Wells, Marcus's wife. I froze, my heart suddenly pounding. Mrs. Wells. Please. Her voice broke slightly. I need to speak with you. Marcus told me everything before he left. Left? I repeated carefully. You mean when he disappeared after embezzling from Gardner Financial? There was a soft sob on the other end of the line. He didn't just leave the company, Ms. Mitchell. He left us. Me and our daughters. I woke up 3 days ago to a note saying he couldn't face what was coming and that we'd be better off without him. My mind raced. Mrs. Wells, are you saying you don't know where Marcus is? No one does, she whispered. He took some cash, his passport, and vanished. The bank accounts are frozen. The FBI came to our house yesterday. Our daughters are terrified. I don't know what to do. I sank onto the edge of my bed, processing this new information. Why are you calling me? Your brother mentioned you. Said you might be helping with the situation. There was a desperate edge to her voice. I didn't know about any of this, Ms. Mitchell. I swear. Whatever Marcus did, my girls and I are innocent. I believed her. Marcus Wells had always struck me as the type of man who would keep his professional and personal lives strictly separated. Where are you now, Mrs. Wells? At my sister's house in Riverview. The media has been camped outside our home since the FBI visit. The story is public? This changed everything. Not yet, but it will be soon. The agents weren't exactly subtle. Her voice trembled. My daughters are 12 and 14, Ms. Mitchell. They idolized their father. How do I tell them he's not just gone, but that he's a criminal? I closed my eyes, my heart aching for this woman and her children. Mrs. Wells, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I wish I could help, but I'm not officially involved with Gardner Financial. But you could be, she said quickly. Your brother said you might take over. If you do, please remember that we're victims too. After promising to keep her situation in mind, I ended the call and sat for a long moment, absorbing this new development. If the FBI was already involved and the media was circling, our timeline had just accelerated dramatically. David needed to understand how urgent this situation had become. At precisely 1 p.m., I pulled into the circular driveway of David's suburban mansion. The sprawling Tudor-style home with its manicured lawns had always seemed like a physical manifestation of my brother's desire to project success and stability. Today it felt like a facade about to crumble. Karen, David's wife, answered the door. Her usual polished appearance was notably absent. Her blonde hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail, her face free of makeup, her eyes red-rimmed. Sarah, she said quietly, stepping back to let me in. Thank you for coming. I followed her through the marble-floored entryway into the formal living room, where David sat staring at a tumbler of amber liquid, despite the early hour. He looked up as I entered, and I was struck by how much he had aged overnight. New lines etched around his eyes, his shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen before. You've heard, he said, not a question. About Marcus disappearing and the FBI investigation? Yes. Andrea Wells just called me. David's eyes widened. She called you? Why? Because she's terrified and desperate, and apparently you mentioned I might be taking over. I sat down across from him, which is news to me. Karen perched on the arm of David's chair, her hand resting protectively on his shoulder. "We've been up all night discussing options," she said. "After you suggested the Horizon acquisition, David realized you might be the only person who could salvage anything from this mess." I studied my brother's face, searching for signs of his usual arrogance or manipulation. Instead, I saw only exhaustion and defeat. "The FBI came to the office yesterday afternoon," he said, his voice hollow. "They've frozen all the company accounts, seized records. It's only a matter of time before they make arrests." "Arrests?" I repeated. "David, if you weren't involved in the fraud—" "I wasn't," he insisted, an echo of his old fire flaring briefly. "But I was the CEO. The responsibility stops with me. At minimum, I'm looking at charges of negligence and failure to maintain proper oversight." Karen squeezed his shoulder. "They took his passport, Sarah." The severity of the situation sank in. If the FBI had already restricted David's travel, they were serious about building a case against him, regardless of his direct involvement in Marcus's scheme. "Tell me about your conversation with Horizon," David said, setting his drink aside. "Is there any hope there?" I explained my meeting with Eleanor, her interest in exploring an acquisition, the necessity for a forensic audit, and the condition of full transparency with authorities. "And my role?" David asked, his expression guarded. "You'd need to step down completely," I said, gently but firmly. "You could maintain a title during the transition for appearance's sake, but no actual authority." He nodded slowly, surprising me with his lack of protest. "And the employees?" Horizon would likely retain most of the financial advisors and their support staff, anyone directly involved in maintaining client relationships. Back-office operations would probably be consolidated with Horizon's existing infrastructure. "Better than nothing," David murmured almost to himself. Then he looked up at me, his eyes clear despite the whiskey. "I'll do it, Sarah. Whatever it takes to protect as many people as possible." Karen gasped softly. "David, are you sure? Your father's company isn't worth protecting people's livelihoods," he finished. "Dad would have made the same choice." I studied my brother, searching for signs of the entitled, arrogant man who had called me a loser just yesterday. In his place sat someone humbled, scared, but finally taking responsibility. "There's something else you should know," I said carefully. "Horizon has offered me a promotion, Senior Vice President of Cybersecurity Integration. If I accept, I'd be overseeing a merger with another company entirely." David frowned. "Would that prevent you from helping with the Gardner situation?" "Not directly, but it could create a perception of conflict of interest." I leaned forward. "David, I need to be clear about something. I can help facilitate discussions between Gardner Financial and Horizon, but I can't be the one leading the acquisition from either side. This needs to be handled by people without our family connection." He nodded slowly. "I understand. But you'll still advise me? Help me navigate this?" The vulnerability in his question caught me off guard. For perhaps the first time in our adult lives, David was openly asking for my help, not as a last resort, but as someone whose judgment he trusted. "Yes," I promised. "I'll help you through this." Karen stood suddenly. "I'll make some coffee. This might be a long afternoon." As she left the room, David and I sat in momentary silence. Then he spoke, his voice low and strained. "I'm sorry, Sarah. For yesterday. For all the years before that." He met my gaze directly. "I've been an arrogant fool." "Yes, you have," I agreed, but without heat. "Why, David? What were you trying to prove all these years?" He sighed heavily. "That Dad made the right choice, that I deserve to run the company instead of you." A rueful smile touched his lips. Pretty ironic, considering how things turned out. "It wasn't a competition," I said softly. "It never was. We both found our paths. Yours, more successfully than mine, apparently." He gestured around him. "All this, the house, the cars, the country club membership, it was never about the things themselves. It was about proving I was worthy of Dad's legacy. And now? Now I just want to make sure 78 people don't lose their jobs because of my failure." He leaned back, suddenly looking exhausted. "How do you do it, Sarah? How did you build this whole impressive career without ever needing to prove anything to anyone? I considered his question carefully. I think I stopped seeking external validation after Michael left. When Jason was little, success meant providing for him, creating a stable home. Professional recognition was secondary. David nodded thoughtfully. The CEO saluting you yesterday. That must have felt vindicating. It did, I admitted, but not for the reasons you might think. What mattered wasn't the public acknowledgement, but knowing my work had made a difference, that I'd protected people. Protection, David repeated. That's what I failed at. I was so focused on appearances that I didn't protect what actually mattered. Karen returned with a tray of coffee, and the conversation shifted to practicalities. What David needed to do immediately, which employees might be retained in an acquisition, how to communicate with clients. By the time I left 3 hours later, we had a preliminary plan in place, with David scheduled to meet with Horizon's acquisition team on Monday morning. As I walked to my car, Karen followed me out, hugging her arms against the afternoon chill. "Sarah," she called softly, "thank you for helping despite everything." I turned to face her. "It's not just for David. It's for everyone involved." She nodded, hesitating before continuing. "I've always admired you, you know. Your independence. Your quiet strength." A faint smile crossed her face. "I used to tell David he should be more like his sister, focused on substance instead of appearance. He never listened." "Until now," I observed. "Crisis has a way of clarifying priorities," she agreed. "Whatever happens next, even if David faces charges, I think he's finally learning what true strength looks like." I drove home reflecting on Karen's words. True strength. It wasn't about titles or salaries or corner offices. It was about facing reality, taking responsibility, and protecting those who depended on you. When I arrived home, Jason was already there, sun-kissed and exuberant from his day on the water. "Mom, you'll never believe what happened today," he exclaimed as I walked in. "Trevor's dad knows Mr. Chen. He was at the graduation yesterday and saw the whole thing. He's offered to write me a recommendation letter for the Horizon internship." I laughed at the coincidence. "That's wonderful, honey. Small world." "So, what happened with Uncle David? Did he apologize for being a jerk yesterday?" I sank onto the couch, suddenly aware of how emotionally drained I felt. "It's complicated, Jason. Your uncle is in some serious trouble, the kind that might end with him facing criminal charges." Jason's eyes widened as I explained the situation in simplified terms, careful not to share details that weren't mine to disclose. "So Gardner Financial might get bought by Horizon? Your company might take over Uncle David's company." Jason processed this with the quick comprehension that always impressed me. "That's actually kind of poetic justice, isn't it? After the way he's treated you all these years?" "It's not about justice," I corrected gently. "It's about doing what's right for the employees and clients who would be hurt otherwise." Jason studied me thoughtfully. "You're helping him, even after everything." "I'm helping the situation," I clarified. "Your uncle made mistakes, serious ones. He'll have to face consequences for those. But that doesn't mean everyone associated with him should suffer. Like Aunt Karen and the cousins. Like them. Like the employees who did nothing wrong. Like the clients who trusted the firm with their savings." I reached out to squeeze his hand. "Life isn't black and white, Jason. Sometimes doing the right thing means helping people who haven't always been kind to you." He nodded slowly. "Is that why you never told Uncle David about your real job? About how successful you are? You were just being the bigger person?" I considered this. Partly. But it was also simpler that way. I didn't need his approval or understanding. I was secure in my own choices. Jason grinned suddenly. "Well, you sure got it yesterday when Mr. Chen saluted you." The look on Uncle David's face. He mimicked an expression of shocked disbelief that made me laugh despite everything. "That was quite a moment," I admitted. "It was epic," Jason declared. "And deserved. You've always been the strongest person I know, Mom. Uncle David just finally got to see what I've always known." His words warmed me in a way no professional recognition ever could. My son saw me, really saw me, and was proud of who I was. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead with David, Gardner Financial, and my potential new role at Horizon, I would face them with the same quiet strength I'd always relied on. My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Acquisition team briefed. They're intrigued. Monday meeting confirmed. Also, Alex wants to have coffee tomorrow to discuss your decision. Followed quickly by another message, this one from David. FBI requesting formal interview on Monday afternoon. Lawyer advises full cooperation. Will update after Horizon meeting in morning. I looked up from my phone to find Jason watching me, concern evident in his expression. More work stuff? He asked. Just setting up meetings for Monday, I assured him. Nothing to worry about tonight. How about we order pizza and watch that sci-fi movie you've been talking about? His face lit up. The one with the time loops? You'll love it, Mom. As Jason pulled up the movie, I sent quick replies to both messages, then put my phone away. Tomorrow would bring decisions about my career and David's future. Monday would bring negotiations that might save or transform our father's company. But tonight was for pizza and time loops, and the simple joy of being with my son. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the life I'd built, not because it had finally been recognized by others, but because it was authentic to who I was and what I valued. The journey hadn't always been easy, but it had been mine. And contrary to what David had believed for so many years, that made me not a loser, but deeply, genuinely successful. Sunday morning dawned with a clarity that seemed fitting for the decisions that lay ahead. I woke early, the house still quiet as the sun painted golden stripes across my bedroom floor. Jason wouldn't be up for hours. Our movie night had stretched well past midnight as he insisted we watch the sequel as well. I slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen, savoring the stillness as I prepared my coffee. These quiet morning moments had always been my sanctuary, time to gather my thoughts before the day's demands began. Today, those demands felt particularly weighty. By noon, I needed to give Alex my decision about the senior VP position. By evening, I should finalize my approach to helping David through the Gardner financial crisis. Two pivotal choices, both with far-reaching implications. With my coffee in hand, I settled on the back porch, watching as the neighborhood gradually stirred to life. A jogger passed by, waving cheerfully. The Henderson sprinklers created rainbows in the morning light. Somewhere, a lawnmower droned to life. Mom! Jason appeared in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep, looking younger than his 18 years. You're up early. Big day, I smiled, patting the chair beside me. Want some coffee? He nodded sleepily, disappearing into the kitchen before returning with a steaming mug. So today's the day you decide about the big promotion? It is. I watched a hummingbird dart among my flowering shrubs. And about how much to involve myself in Uncle David's situation. Jason blew on his coffee, considering. What are you thinking? I turned to him, suddenly struck by how mature he'd become. When had my little boy transformed into this thoughtful young man? I'm thinking I want to hear your perspective, I said. You're heading to college soon, starting your own life. How would my taking this promotion affect you? He looked surprised. Me? Mom, this is about your career. It's about our lives, I corrected gently. Every major decision I've ever made has been with you in mind. This one should be no different. Jason set his mug down, his expression serious. Honestly, I think you should take it. You've always put me first. Maybe too much sometimes. This is your moment, Mom. You've earned it. It would mean more responsibility, longer hours, possibly some travel. He shrugged. I'm leaving for MIT in August anyway. And it's not like you'd be abandoning a little kid. I'm an adult now, remember? His smile turned teasing. Besides, maybe I'll end up interning at Horizon and we can carpool. I laughed, reaching over to ruffle his hair. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher. He leaned back, his expression turning more serious. What about Uncle David, though? Will helping him interfere with your new position? It could complicate things, I admitted. The two situations aren't directly related, but there's potential for perceived conflict of interest. But you'll find a way to help him anyway, Jason said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. I nodded slowly. I think I have to try. Not for David's sake, but for the employees and clients who would be hurt otherwise. That's what makes you different from Uncle David, Jason observed. He always thinks about how things affect him. You think about how they affect everyone else. The simple truth of his observation resonated deeply. Perhaps that was the fundamental difference between David and me. Not our career paths or accomplishments, but our perspective on responsibility. Thanks for the insight, philosopher. I smiled, standing to refill my coffee. Any other wisdom to share before I meet with Alex? Jason grinned. Just be yourself, Mom. That's always been more than enough. 2 hours later, I sat across from Alex at Horizon's Executive Cafe, a modern space on the top floor of our headquarters with panoramic views of the city. Sunday was quiet, with only a few other employees taking advantage of the free gourmet coffee and comfortable workspace. I appreciate you meeting on a Sunday, Alex said, settling into the sleek leather chair opposite me. I know family time is precious. Jason encouraged me to come, I replied. He's quite excited about the potential internship. Alex smiled. Smart kid. Takes after his mother. He stirred his espresso thoughtfully. So, have you had time to consider my offer? I nodded, taking a deliberate breath. I have, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Before I give you my answer, though, there's something you should know. Carefully, I explained the situation with Gardner Financial, the fraud, the FBI investigation, and Horizon's potential acquisition interest. I outlined my family connection and my limited advisory role in the discussions. Eleanor mentioned something about this, Alex said when I finished. She seemed quite interested in the acquisition possibility. That's why I wanted to be transparent, I explained. If I accept the SVP position, there could be a perception of conflict of interest. I wouldn't be directly involved in the acquisition, but as a senior executive, Alex waved away my concern. Sarah, if anything, your family connection gives you insight that could be valuable. As long as you're not negotiating on either side or accessing confidential information inappropriately, I see no conflict. Relief washed through me. Thank you for understanding. So, he leaned forward slightly. Does that mean you're accepting the position? I met his gaze directly. Yes, I am. I'm honored by your confidence in me, and I'm excited about the challenge. His face broke into a broad smile. Excellent. The team will be thrilled. We can announce it at tomorrow's executive meeting. He paused, studying me. There is one more thing, Sarah. Something I've been meaning to discuss with you for some time. I raised an eyebrow, curious. Your work style, he continued. It's exceptional, but invisible. You solve crucial problems, develop groundbreaking solutions, yet you never seek recognition. While I admire your humility, I wonder if you realize how that affects your career trajectory. I prefer letting my work speak for itself, I said, slightly defensive. And it does, to those who know where to look. But leadership requires visibility, Sarah. As SVP, you'll need to step into the spotlight occasionally, advocate for your team, represent Horizon publicly. He smiled gently. Saturday's graduation wasn't just about recognizing your past contributions. It was about preparing others to see you in this new role. The revelation startled me. You planned that? I seized an opportunity, he corrected. When I saw your name in the program, I realized it was a perfect moment to acknowledge your achievements in front of people who matter to you. His expression turned thoughtful. Including your brother, I noticed. I shook my head, amazed. You observed more than I realized. That's my job, Alex shrugged. Recognizing talent sometimes means recognizing when that talent is hiding in plain sight. He raised his cup in a small toast. To your new role, Sarah. I have a feeling you're going to surprise everyone, including yourself. After our meeting, I drove to the small lakeside park where I often came to think. The wooden bench overlooking the water had witnessed many of my life's pivotal moments. The decision to divorce Michael, the choice to accept the position at Horizon, rather than join my father's firm, the night I'd sat here until dawn after Dad's funeral. Today, the lake was dotted with sailboats, their white sails stark against the blue water. Families picnicked on the grassy shore, children shrieking with delight as they chased each other. A couple walked hand in hand along the path, leaning into each other with the easy intimacy of long companionship. My phone buzzed, a text from David. "Can we meet before tomorrow's Horizon meeting? Breakfast at Delman's, 7 a.m.? I typed a quick affirmative response, then set the phone aside, returning my attention to the peaceful scene before me. For years, I had defined myself in opposition to David. His flashy success versus my quiet competence. His emphasis on appearance versus my focus on substance. But that definition had been limiting in its own way, keeping me smaller than I needed to be. Alex was right. My tendency to avoid recognition hadn't just been humility. It had been a form of self-protection. If no one noticed me, no one could judge me the way David did. If I didn't claim my achievements, I couldn't fail in the ways that seemed to matter to my family. But that approach no longer served me, or the people who would soon be looking to me for leadership. The senior VP role would require me to step forward, to become visible in ways that had always made me uncomfortable. The thought was daunting, but also exhilarating. As the afternoon light began to soften, I gathered my thoughts and headed home, my path forward clearer than it had been in years. Monday morning arrived with the crisp promise of new beginnings. I rose before dawn, carefully selecting a charcoal gray suit that conveyed both authority and approachability, the balance I would need to strike in my new role. As I fastened the delicate silver necklace Jason had given me for Christmas, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed different somehow. More confident, more resolved. "You've got this," I whispered to her. Delman's was already bustling when I arrived at 7 a.m., the popular breakfast spot filled with business people starting their week with coffee and strategy sessions. David had secured a corner booth, 2 cups of coffee already waiting on the table. He stood as I approached, an uncharacteristically humble gesture. "Sarah, thank you for coming." He looked as if he hadn't slept, dark circles under his eyes contrasting sharply with his pale complexion. "Of course." I slid into the booth. "How are you holding up?" He gave a hollow laugh. "About as well as you'd expect." He pushed a folder across the table. "My lawyer prepared this for the Horizon meeting. It outlines what we know about the fraud, the current financial position, and the client portfolio value." I skimmed the contents, impressed by the thoroughness. "This is good, David. Transparent and comprehensive." "Number more hiding," he said quietly. "That's what got us into this mess in the first place. Me pretending everything was fine when it wasn't, Marcus hiding his activities, the company culture that made people afraid to raise red flags." He took a sip of coffee, grimacing at its bitterness. "The FBI interview is at 2 p.m. My lawyer thinks I'll likely face charges." I reached across the table to squeeze his hand briefly. "One step at a time. Let's focus on the Horizon meeting first." He nodded, then pulled another envelope from his jacket. "There's something else. I had my lawyer draft this over the weekend. It's a formal acknowledgement that Dad's original division of assets was inequitable." I frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "When Dad died, he left you a small trust, and me the controlling interest in Gardner Financial." David's voice was steady now, his gaze direct. "What you never knew was that I convinced him to do that. I manipulated him, Sarah. Played on his traditional values, his concerns about your divorce, your single motherhood. The revelation hit me like a physical blow." "You what?" "I'm not proud of it," he continued, his voice thick with regret. "I was so convinced I deserved to run the company, so desperate to prove myself. The truth is, you are always more qualified. Dad knew it too. He just let me persuade him otherwise." I sat back, struggling to process this confession. All these years, I had assumed it was my father's antiquated values that had led to David inheriting the business. To learn that David had actively engineered the situation. "Why are you telling me this now?" I finally asked. "Because I'm done living a lie," he said simply. Whatever happens today, with Horizon, with the FBI wanted you to know the truth, and I wanted to make amends. He pushed the envelope toward me. This document acknowledges that you are entitled to an equal share of Dad's estate. If anything remains after this mess is sorted out, it stipulates that you receive appropriate compensation. The gesture was symbolic at best. There would likely be nothing left after the fraud was addressed and potential penalties paid. But the acknowledgement itself was significant. "Thank you," I said softly. "That couldn't have been easy to admit." "None of this is easy," he smiled ruefully. "But it's necessary." He checked his watch. "We should head to Horizon. I don't want to be late." The meeting with Horizon's acquisition team was both more straightforward and more grueling than I had anticipated. I attended only as an observer, careful to maintain appropriate boundaries given my new executive role. David presented the situation with a candor that clearly impressed the team, answering difficult questions without defensiveness or evasion. By the end of the 3-hour session, the outline of a path forward had emerged. Horizon would conduct an expedited forensic audit, working in conjunction with the authorities. Assuming the client assets were verifiable and the extent of the fraud aligned with David's disclosure, they would move forward with acquiring the client portfolio and retaining key staff. As the meeting concluded, Eleanor pulled me aside. "Your brother surprised me." I expected arrogance, but he was remarkably humble. "Crisis changes people," I replied, echoing Karen's observation from Saturday. "Indeed." Eleanor studied me thoughtfully. "Alex told me you accepted the SVP position. Congratulations." "Thank you. I'm looking forward to the challenge." "Good. Because your first challenge starts immediately." She handed me a sleek folder. "The Quantum Shield integration planning begins this afternoon. I've scheduled the initial team meeting for 3 p.m. I blinked, caught off guard by the immediacy. "Today? But I haven't even been officially announced yet." Eleanor smiled. "Welcome to executive leadership, Sarah. The announcement is a formality. The work starts now." As she walked away, I felt a momentary flutter of panic. Everything was moving so quickly. The promotion, David's situation, the potential acquisition. But beneath the anxiety was a current of excitement. This was what growth felt like. Challenging, uncomfortable, but ultimately transformative. I found David in the lobby, speaking quietly with his lawyer. When he saw me, he excused himself and approached. "The FBI interview is in an hour," he said, his expression tense but resolved. The Horizon team seemed cautiously interested? "They were impressed by your honesty," I confirmed. "It's a good start, David." He nodded, then hesitated. "Sarah, whatever happens this afternoon, thank you. Not just for the Horizon connection, but for showing me what real strength looks like." Before I could respond, he surprised me with a quick, awkward hug. Something we hadn't shared in years. Then he was gone, striding toward the exit with his lawyer, shoulders squared as if marching toward battle. I watched him go, a complex mixture of emotions washing through me. For so long, David had been the antagonist in my story, the arrogant brother who dismissed my choices, who had apparently even manipulated our father against me. Yet in these past few days, I'd glimpsed something else. A flawed man finally facing his mistakes, attempting, however imperfectly, to make amends. My phone buzzed with a text from Jason. "How'd the big meeting go? Also, Trevor's dad just emailed me the internship application." I smiled, typing back. "Meeting went well. Send me the application when you're done. I'll put in a good word." His response came immediately. "Already filled it out. Submitting today. Dinner tonight to celebrate your first day as SVP?" "Absolutely. Your choice of restaurant." As I slipped my phone into my pocket, I spotted Alex walking toward me across the lobby. "There she is, our newest senior VP," he greeted me warmly. "Ready for your first executive team meeting? I've moved it up to 2 p.m. so we can announce your promotion before the Quantum Shield integration kickoff." I took a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. "Ready as I'll ever be." He smiled approvingly. "That's what I like to hear. Oh, and Sarah, remember what I said about visibility. This is your moment to step into the spotlight. The executive meeting was held in Horizon's most impressive conference room, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline and a table of polished walnut that could seat 30. Today, 15 of the company's most senior leaders gathered there, engaged in pre-meeting small talk as they settled into their places. Several nodded in greeting as I entered, though I could see the curiosity in their expressions. While I had worked with many of them on various projects, I had never been part of this inner circle before. Alex called the meeting to order, moving efficiently through several agenda items before reaching what he had listed simply as quote, team announcement. Before we move on to the quantum shield integration, he said, his voice carrying easily through the large room, I'm pleased to announce an important addition to our executive leadership. Quote, he turned toward me with a warm smile. Sarah Mitchell has accepted the position of Senior Vice President of Cybersecurity Integration, effective immediately. A round of applause followed, with several executives offering congratulations. Eleanor caught my eye from across the table, giving me an encouraging nod. Many of you have worked with Sarah over the years, Alex continued, though you may not have fully appreciated the scope of her contributions. Sarah prefers to let her work speak for itself, a rare quality in our industry. This drew knowing chuckles from around the table. But her exceptional leadership during last year's security crisis demonstrated exactly the kind of innovative thinking and steady guidance we need as we move forward with the Quantum Shield acquisition. He gestured for me to speak. This was it. My moment to either shrink back into comfortable invisibility or step confidently into my new role. I rose from my seat, surveying the faces around me. These were my peers now, not just colleagues or superiors. They were looking to me not just for technical expertise but for leadership. Thank you, Alex, and thank you all for the warm welcome, I began, my voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in my stomach. Many of you know me as the quiet problem solver in the background. That's a role I've been comfortable in for many years. I paused, remembering Alex's words about visibility, about allowing myself to be seen. But the challenges ahead, particularly the quantum shield integration, will require a different approach from all of us. Security isn't just a technical issue, it's fundamentally about trust. Our clients trust us with their most sensitive information. Our partners trust us to maintain the integrity of shared systems. And most importantly, we must trust each other to communicate openly, to acknowledge vulnerabilities before they become crises. I made eye contact with several executives as I continued, drawing strength from their attentive expressions. In my new role, I'll be focusing on building those trust relationships between our team and quantum shields, between our security protocols and their encryption technology, and between our company and the clients who depend on us. I look forward to working with each of you to ensure this integration strengthens Horizon's position as an industry leader in both innovation and security. The response was immediate and gratifying. Nods of approval, thoughtful questions, offers of support. As I sat down, Alex gave me a subtle thumbs up. I had passed the first test, transitioning from behind-the-scenes problem solver to visible leader. The meeting continued, shifting to the quantum shield integration specifics. I contributed where appropriate, laying out my initial approach to merging the security infrastructures. By the time we adjourned, I had scheduled follow-up meetings with 3 key department heads and received invitations to 2 executive strategy sessions. As we filed out of the conference room, my phone buzzed with a text from David. FBI interview complete. Cooperated fully. No arrest today but investigation continuing. Lawyer cautiously optimistic. Horizon acquisition team reached out. They want to move quickly. Call you tonight with details. I exhaled slowly, relieved that at least the immediate crisis had been averted. David's cooperation seemed to be working in his favor, just as I had hoped. There was no time to dwell on it, however. The Quantum Shield integration team was gathering in 5 minutes, and as the new SVP, I would be leading the meeting. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of introductions, planning sessions, and strategy discussions. By the time I left the office at 6:30 p.m., I felt simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. The scope of my new role was daunting, but the challenge energized me in a way I hadn't experienced in years. As promised, Jason had chosen his favorite steakhouse for our celebration dinner. He was already waiting at our table when I arrived, looking surprisingly grown up in a button-down shirt and sport coat. "You dressed up," I observed, kissing his cheek before sitting down. "It's not every day my mom becomes a senior VP," he grinned. I figured it deserved some respect. "Well, you look very handsome." I smiled at him, my heart swelling with love and pride. "How was your day? Did you submit the internship application?" "All done," he confirmed. Trevor's dad said they're fast-tracking the process for graduation seniors, so I might hear back by the end of the week. The waiter appeared to take our drink orders. Sparkling water for me, soda for Jason, and then Jason leaned forward eagerly. "So, how was your first day as a big-shot executive?" I laughed. "Overwhelming, exciting, slightly terrifying, all of the above." "Did they give you a bigger office?" "That happens later this week. For now, I'm still in my old space." "But they will give you a fancy office, right? With one of those glass walls that turns opaque when you press a button?" His eyes gleamed with enthusiasm for the trappings of corporate success. "I have no idea," I admitted. "But if they do, you'll be the first to test it out." Our meals arrived. Filet mignon for me, the largest ribeye on the menu for Jason, whose appetite seemed to grow daily despite his lean frame. As we ate, I filled him in on the day's events, including the brief update from David. "So Uncle David might actually avoid jail?" Jason asked, surprised. "It's possible, if he continues to cooperate fully, and if the investigation confirms he wasn't directly involved in the fraud." I took a sip of water. The Horizon acquisition is moving forward too, which is good news for the employees. Jason nodded thoughtfully, then asked the question I'd been expecting. "Are you going to forgive him? Uncle David, I mean. For how he's treated you all these years?" I considered this carefully. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, Jason. It's a process. David and I have decades of complicated history between us. That doesn't disappear overnight, even with genuine remorse on his part. "But you're helping him anyway," Jason observed. "Yes, because forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing not to let it control your future." I smiled at my son, marveling at how these conversations had evolved as he'd grown. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is help someone who doesn't deserve it. Jason's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it briefly before his eyes widened. "Mom, it's an email from Horizon about the internship." "Already? Open it." He tapped the screen, scanning the message quickly before his face broke into a wide grin. "I got it! Engineering department, starting June 15th. He looked up, his expression a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "That was so fast! Do you think your promotion had something to do with it?" "I'm sure your qualifications and recommendation from Trevor's father were more than enough," I assured him. "But I certainly won't object to having you at Horizon this summer." We spent the rest of dinner discussing the internship and Jason's upcoming graduation celebrations. It wasn't until we were walking to our cars that my phone rang, David calling as promised. "Do you need to take that?" Jason asked, noticing my hesitation. "It can wait until I get home," I decided, silencing the ringer. "Tonight is about us celebrating." Jason hugged me tightly before we parted ways in the parking lot. "I'm really proud of you, Mom. You know that, right?" "Thank you, sweetheart," I whispered, my throat suddenly tight with emotion. "That means everything to me." As I drove home through the quiet evening streets, I reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past 3 days. From being called a loser at Jason's graduation to becoming a senior VP at Horizon, from years of being underestimated by my brother to helping navigate him through the greatest crisis of his life. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear. David's legal troubles were far from resolved. The Gardner financial acquisition would be complex and potentially contentious. My new role at Horizon would demand more of me than any position I'd held before. But for perhaps the first time in my adult life, I felt fully seen by my colleagues, by my brother, and most importantly, by myself. The woman who had once been content to hide in the background had stepped confidently into the spotlight, not seeking validation or praise, but simply claiming the space she had earned. When I arrived home, I returned David's call, listening as he detailed his FBI interview and the ongoing discussions with Horizon's acquisition team. There was a new humility in his voice, a recognition that the path to redemption would be long and difficult. "I know I don't deserve your help," he said at the end of our conversation, "but I'm grateful for it nonetheless." "We're family, David," I replied simply. That doesn't always make things easy, but it does make them important. After we hung up, I stepped out onto my back porch, gazing up at the star-filled sky. The same stars had witnessed my struggles and triumphs, my moments of doubt and clarity. They had seen me grow from an uncertain young single mother to a confident executive, from someone who accepted being underestimated to someone who embraced being recognized. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But as I stood there under the vast canopy of stars, I felt a profound sense of peace. My brother had called me a loser, but the CEO had stood and saluted. Neither definition had changed who I truly was, but recognizing my own worth had changed everything else. With a smile, I turned and went inside, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us. The fraud is too extensive, and the regulatory repercussions would be insurmountable. That's what I thought, I nodded. But there's still value there. The client relationships, some of the advisors, the established reputation before all this. Potentially, Eleanor agreed. Though the reputation will take a significant hit once this becomes public, regardless of how it's handled. She studied me closely. "What's your stake in this, Sarah? Why do you care if your brother's firm fails?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't care about the firm," I admitted after a moment. "But there are 78 employees whose livelihoods are at stake. People who worked with my father for years. They don't deserve to lose everything because of Marcus's crimes and David's negligence." Eleanor's expression softened slightly. "Admirable, but business decisions rarely have room for sentiment." "It's not just sentiment," I countered. "It's strategic. Gardner Financial has a solid client base, mostly mid-tier wealth management clients who've been with the firm for generations. That's a demographic Horizon has been trying to penetrate for years." A slight smile played at Eleanor's lips. "You've done your homework." "I've been paying more attention to my brother's business than he realized," I said dryly. The waitress returned to take our food orders. A veggie omelet for Eleanor, avocado toast for me. When she left, Eleanor leaned forward, her voice lowered. "All right, let's say I'm interested. What exactly are you proposing?" I outlined my concept. Horizon would acquire Gardner Financial's client portfolio and select staff. The acquisition would be positioned as a strategic merger, emphasizing continuity of service for clients, while bringing them the added security of Horizon's resources and technology. "And your brother?" Eleanor asked, arching an eyebrow. "Where does he fit in this scenario?" "He doesn't," I said firmly. "David would need to step down completely. He could retain a title for appearance's sake during the transition, but no actual authority." "He'll fight that." "Initially, yes. But when the alternative is potential criminal charges for failing to prevent the fraud, I think he'll come around." Eleanor nodded slowly. "You understand, we'd need to conduct our own forensic audit before proceeding with anything like this." "Of course. And everything would need to be disclosed to the appropriate regulatory bodies. Transparency is essential." "Agreed." She pulled out her phone and checked her calendar. "I can have our acquisition team review this Monday morning. If they're interested, we could potentially move quickly, but only if your brother cooperates fully. I'll make sure he understands what's at stake," I promised. Eleanor put her phone away and fixed me with a penetrating gaze. "One more thing, Sarah. Alex's offer of the SVP position. How does that factor into this?" I blinked, caught off guard by the question. "It doesn't. The two situations are completely separate." "Are they?" She smiled knowingly. "You're in an interesting position. On one hand, a career-defining promotion. On the other, saving your family's legacy, or at least parts of it. Most people would see a potential conflict of interest. There's no conflict, I insisted. Whether I take the SVP position or not has no bearing on whether Horizon should acquire Gardner Financial. That decision should be based solely on business merits. Eleanor's smile widened. And that, Sarah Mitchell, is exactly why you deserve that promotion. Your integrity is as impressive as your technical skills. She raised her coffee cup in a small toast. I'll support the acquisition exploration, assuming the numbers check out. And I'll tell Alex he'd be a fool to let you go. Relief washed over me. Thank you, Eleanor. Don't thank me yet. The hard part is still ahead, convincing your brother to accept reality. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from David. We need to talk. Come to the house. 1 p.m. I showed Eleanor the message. Looks like that conversation is happening sooner rather than later. Good luck, she said, her expression sympathetic. Family business is always the most complicated kind. After brunch, I drove home to change before meeting David. Jason had texted that he was spending the day on Trevor's family boat and would be home for dinner. The house felt unusually quiet as I moved through it, changing from my brunch attire into jeans and a casual blouse. As I was getting ready to leave, my phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? Is this Sarah Mitchell? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Yes, this is Sarah. This is Andrea Wells, Marcus's wife.